How's everybody's week this week? Good. You all are quiet today. No comment? Okay. So over the last few weeks we've been talking about Russian roulette and how we play Russian roulette with our souls sometimes. And I realized that through the last 4 or 5 sermons, I've been really good about telling you how we play Russian roulette. But we didn't get into how not to. So over the next few weeks, what I want to do is I want to really start with one of the key areas that we need to understand as a Christian, and that's trust. And I think trust is a very important part of a relationship with Christ, right? So I want to start today with a story about a man named Lazarus. Now, Lazarus was a good friend of Jesus. He was a friend of the family. Mary Magdalene was the one who rubbed oils on Jesus' feet. And that was Lazarus' sister. So where I'm reading from today is John chapter 11. I'm going to go ahead and read everything because it's a pretty good amount of reading. But it's something we need to go through and understand. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. This is the Mary who later poured the expensive perfume on the Lord's feet and whipped them with his hair. Her brother Lazarus was sick. So the 2 sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, "Lord, your dear friend is very sick." But when Jesus heard this, he said, now, when you read this first part, you learn that Lazarus is a very dear friend of Jesus, and then that he's friends with the family members, and he's very close to Jesus. And there's not many people in the Bible that they call a dear friend to Jesus. So you want to assume that Lazarus was beyond close to Jesus. So this next part is amazing but yet troubling. Because it says, when Jesus heard about what he said, he then said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Finally, he said to his disciples, "Let's go back to Judea." But his disciples objected. "Rabbi," they said, "only a few days ago the people in Judea were trying to stone you. Are you going to go there again?" Jesus replied, "There are 12 hours in a day, in daylight every day. During the day, people can walk safely. They can see because they have light in this world, but at night there's danger of stumbling because they have no light." Then he said, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now I will go and wake him." So here you've got Lazarus. He's a good friend of Jesus. I mean, beyond friend, close friend, almost family member friendship. And he hears that Lazarus is sick and dying. His family members send word to Jesus to come because Lazarus is sick and dying. You see, these people knew Jesus. They had walked with Jesus. They had seen what Jesus had done, right? They had seen the miracle healings. They had seen blind people be able to see. They'd seen people with crippling limbs and legs gone and grown back and all kinds of miracles. People walking that were lame. People who were lepers and had parts of their body fallen off healed. They had seen all this. And they're calling for Jesus because Jesus is a dear friend to this man. And they're saying, "Jesus, you need to come." And they were calling him. We're going to find a little bit that they were calling him because they knew he could heal him. But Jesus waited for 2 days before he left. Doesn't that strike you as odd? I mean, Jesus loves him. How many of you, if you called your best friend or a dear friend and said, I'm sick and I'm dying, how long do you think it would take for that dear friend to get to you? I've got friends in Illinois. If I called them, they would be here quicker than it would take to drive. I went through some bad times when I was younger, and I called a buddy of mine, and it was a almost 2.5 hour drive, and he made it in 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's how much he cared for me. He made it faster than you could legally make it. But here Jesus is, I'm going to wait a couple of days. And he says, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so the Son of God will reveal glory from this. I mean, can you imagine their faces? They're like, so he's not going to die. Cool, we don't have to hurry. He's not going to die, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like. He's not going to die. So Jesus waits 2 days, and then he goes. And then the disciples said, Lord, if he is sleeping, he will soon get better. Though they thought Jesus meant Lazarus was simply sleeping, but Jesus meant that Lazarus had died. So he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now you will really believe. Come, let's go see him. So he's good friends with Lazarus. He's good friends with the family, and he says to them, yep, Lazarus is dead, and yep, for your sake, I am glad I wasn't there. What? Okay. You're a friend of the family. You're close. Nobody else has ever been called a true friend of Jesus. Nobody has ever had that connotation of being that close to Jesus as Lazarus and Mary. The man is sick and dying, and you said, we're going to wait a couple of days. I'm in no hurry. And then he dies after you said he's not going to die. And you did it for your glory, but yet now you're being a jerk and saying, I'm glad I wasn't there. What kind of Jesus is this? I mean, it's kind of, there's more to the story than Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead, correct? I mean, we all know the ending of the story. But see, that's not the point. Is not the end of the story. I mean, the end of the story is what he's talking about. But for us on a daily basis, this means a whole lot more. You know, how many people have you heard say, if God is real, why does he let bad things happen to good people? If God is real, why am I going through what I am going through? If God is real, why do I have cancer and I'm dying? I have faith. I believe in God. I love God. He's my friend. I have given everything I have to Jesus. But I'm dying. Why? My father loved God, and he passed away. My grandmother loved God, but she passed away. You let her die. Lazarus was sick. He's supposed to be your best friend, and you waited 2 days for what? You could have been here. You could have come here. You could have healed him. I see you heal people that don't mean a thing to you because you don't know them. But this is your friend and you couldn't heal him? Right? When Jesus arrived in Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Mary and Martha and their loss. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if only you had been there, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that you are God, and will give you whatever you ask." So even Martha's questioning. So God, it's only a couple miles away. You were a couple miles away. You couldn't leave Brahms and come see me? You were a couple miles away. You could have healed him. How many of us in our lives go through this? We have a hard time trusting Jesus and trusting God, right? And it's really hard because God is sitting here saying, there's a bigger picture here that you don't know about. He said before that Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. I've had a lot of things happen in my life. I've had a lot of times in my life where I've sat and I've done exactly that and said, God, if you are real and if you exist, why? And I was like a lot of people. He can't be real. He's vindictive and he's mean and he tortures people and he causes all this. But in the story of Lazarus, you start to get a picture, right? You start to get a picture that, one, God doesn't cause the pain and suffering. Now, like Jesus, he could have come and healed Lazarus. He could have fixed him, right? He could have taken that pain away. But he didn't. He didn't because there was glory going to be coming to him because of this. Jesus told her, he told her, your brother will rise again. Yes, Martha said, he will rise when everybody else rises in the last days. And Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha? She said, yes. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. He asked them, he says, where have you put them? Where have you put Lazarus? And they told him, Lord, come to me. Then Jesus wept. Jesus cried tears. The people who were standing nearby said, see how much he loved this man. But some said, this man healed a blind man. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying? Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. So, here we're at the part of the story where Jesus has them take him to the tomb. And he's bawling his eyes out. And everybody's going, look, see how much he cared for that man? look at how much he loved that man. And that's when people started saying, again, he could have healed him. This is the guy that made people not blind see. You know, even the people who followed him were kind of questioning. The people who knew Jesus, had seen Jesus, were questioning him. They weren't putting trust in him, right? There wasn't a lot of trust here. Come on, Jesus, he's dead. So it goes on, and Jesus tells him, he says, I want you to roll away the stone. See, in those days, they dug a hole in the rock. They chiseled out a hole, cavity in the rock on the side of a hill, and they made these big round stones, and they would roll the stone in front of the grave so animals couldn't get in, and it would seal it. So he says, I want you to roll the stone away. And they're like, no. Jesus, he's been in there for 4 days. I don't know about you, but it's hot here. And he stinks. Can't you smell it from here? I'm not opening. I'm not going to open it. Sorry. They protested. And they said, man, he just smells terrible. And Jesus responds, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? Didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? So up until this point, Jesus waited 2 days. He didn't heal his friend. He was only a couple of miles away, and then he shows up 2 days late, and the guy's already dead. And it's been 4 days he's been in the grave. And he tells them to roll it away, and the whole time they're going, now you want to do something. What are you going to do? He stinks. He's dead. You could have healed him. And he says, if you want to see God's glory, all you have to do is believe. And I picture them at that point. I mean, Jesus put them in check. He says, oh, you're not being faithful. You're not trusting in me. And so they go up and they roll the stone away. And Jesus looked up to heaven. He said, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me, but I said it out loud for the sake of the people standing here, so that they will believe that you sent me. Then Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. Jesus told them, unwrap him and let him go. You see, in the story of Lazarus, there was a much bigger picture going on than people could ever have understood. Could Jesus have come and healed Lazarus? In a heartbeat, right? He wouldn't even had to have come. We've seen where the soldier comes for his eunuch slave, and he says, can you heal my slave? And Jesus says, all right, let's go. I'll go to your house and we'll heal him. And he says, no, if you've got the power to heal, you don't have to go anywhere. All you have to do is say it and he'll be healed. And Jesus says, okay, it's done. And he heals a man without ever touching him or going near him or seeing him. He could have done that to Lazarus, right? He could have saved him. He could have healed him. But he didn't. He had a bigger plan. He could have come a couple of days earlier and at least seen him before he died. But he didn't, because he had a bigger plan, right? The people looked at Jesus like he was some kind of jerk. Like he was just a complete jerk. This was supposed to be your friend, Jesus. Seriously, is this how you treat your friends? If this is how you treat people you love, I don't want anything to do with you. Right? I mean, you could have healed. Of all the people, Lazarus was your friend. But we know the story, and we know that there was something bigger that they didn't see. You see, raising him from the dead says a whole lot more than healing him, right? I could lay hands on people and pray in the name of God and they be healed. And a lot of people will still be skeptic. But if I walk out here to a graveyard and I pray in the name of Jesus for somebody to come out of the ground, and they come out of the ground and walk around, the glory to God is going to be a whole lot bigger. And people can't go, he faked that, right? Not that I could ever do that. I don't want that gift. I'll be blamed for the zombie apocalypse. That would be my luck. I'd bring somebody up and he's like, bring. Hey. Sorry, Michael Jackson videos were in my head this morning. How many times in our lives do we go through this exact same scenario? But yet, I see it all day long that rather than putting our faith and trust in God and in Jesus, that his plan is bigger than what we know and can see and than what we're dealing with now. We give up. Sorry, you don't love me. If you really loved me, this wouldn't have happened. Right? You know, I put a quote online the other day that it's hard enough to trust God when we have a hard time trusting the people that we see, the people that are close to us. When the people, everybody that's around us lets us down at some point or another. I don't care who you are in life, everybody lets everybody down at one point or another, correct? And if we have a hard time trusting them, how are we ever going to fully trust God? And then I went further and I said, but I think part of the problem isn't so much the people around us. I think part of the problem is ourselves. I mean, how hard is it to trust yourself? So, in order for me to put trust and faith in Jesus, how hard is that when I can't even put trust and faith in myself and the people around me? I have no example. I have nothing to look at, right? That says this is what trust is. At least nothing physically living in my life. But yet I can come here and I can look in the Bible and I can read about Jesus and I can see what kind of person he was. I can see the things he did and I can see how he always came through. And I can look through the entire Bible and see how God doesn't do things exactly the way we want them done. But in the end, he always does what's best for us. Everybody in this room is a parent. Well, almost everybody. How many of you have looked at your children and said, don't. I know what's best. Or how many of you have let them do it knowing that they're going to fail and they're going to get hurt just so they can learn the lesson that it hurts when they do it, or learn the lesson that you got to get back up when it hurts and you got to keep trying and you got to keep going, right? We all use these lessons to train and teach our children. So how come when God does that, we don't think he loves us. He hates us. Now, granted, we've probably all had children that said, "You hate me, you let me fall off my bike. Why didn't you tell me the burner was hot?" It tasted like chocolate. You didn't tell me it was X-Lax. We're so quick to blame God for everything. And it's because of our lack in trust in God and in ourselves and in life and in everything that we have a hard time with this. You see, and I saw this illustration and I loved it, so I decided to do it here, and I brought a ladder. The one that the guy used in the illustration I saw, I couldn't use because it's a 40-foot ladder, and I don't know about you, I'm scared of heights. So me climbing up a 40-foot ladder to illustrate trust would not be good. Because I'm the person who would have been up here going, "Oh, I gotta get back down. It's so high." But a Christian walk with Jesus is just like anything else. It's like any relationship you have. Friend relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, bad relationship with your neighbors or whoever. Any relationship you have, it starts at the beginning, and you have to take steps to find out if you trust that person or you don't trust that person. Generally, you find out if you don't trust that person, you walk away, right? And with a Christian walk, it's the same way with Jesus. You know, and I like to use the ladder illustration because you're taking steps up. You see, when you're in a relationship with Christ, you've got a goal. Your goal is to get up here to this point, right? You want to get to this point where you're in commune with Jesus, that you and him are so close that you don't question what he asks you to do. If he tells you, "I don't want you doing that," you say, "Okay, God, I won't do it." If he asks you to tithe and to give money to the church, or if he asks you to give money to that homeless person or feed that couple across the way, you don't question it, you just do it. And that's the point as a Christian we want to get to where we are fully surrendered to him. But it's a climb to get there, right? And you see, it takes one step at a time. You don't automatically go from the first to the top. But see, we live in this society where we want instant gratification and we want instant trust and we want instant everything. And we completely forget that there's a whole set of steps to get up to that point. Right? Trust isn't something that happens overnight. And see, when you walk with Christ, when you begin and you take that step of faith, that very first step, you start to see things down below from a different perspective. Now, I'm not that high up right now, so it kind of looks the same, but yet there's something a little different about it, right? So whatever it is I'm going through, God's doing something, but I really can't see it. And the higher I climb and the higher and the closer I get to Jesus, the more I can see everything. The more I get a better picture of everything around and everything going on, and I can see that there was something more there that I didn't see from down here. But you see, what we do, we hop on here, we get on this first rung, and we go, "God, I want to be here. I want to get up top, and I'm surrendering everything to you." And wait a minute here. Why did you let this happen? Yes, I want to be here, but you let this happen. I got to come back down here. And we step off the ladder, or we stay on the bottom rung. And we don't keep climbing because Jesus sees something different that we don't see. There's a bigger picture going on that we don't see. Lazarus is going to be raised from the dead, and we can't see that. All we see is a dead man that stinks in a grave. Right? All we see is that my wife hurt me. My husband hurt me. They damaged me. I can't get past that. I was molested as a child. This person did things to me that I will never be able to forget. Family members have died that didn't need to die. They were so young, there was no point in them dying. Why is my family member addicted to drugs? Why is this person just an a-hole? You see, but we view these things, and we view these things in the eyes of being down here. God's up here going, I've got a bigger picture. I want you to come up here so you can see it. I've got something more I want to show you. I got something bigger I am doing, and it's going to be for my glory. And all you got to do is believe and have faith and trust in me. And he's inviting us to come up. And we get up here and we start getting a little bit of healing from these things. And then something else happens, and rather than going, all right, God, I'm giving you my trust, I'm giving you my faith, I'm giving you everything. I don't know what's going on here, but I know you have a bigger plan, and I know something's coming of this that is way more than I know, and I want to see it, God, so I'm coming up another step. I'm surrendering it to you. And we take another step. And the higher you climb, the more you can see. And the more when you look back and you look down, you can say, holy cow, I can't believe God was with me at that time. He pulled me from the fire. Holy cow, had I stayed with that person I thought I loved, that treated me like crap, Jesus allowed those things to happen because he had something more for me and he wanted to take me out of that. Right? I don't know if these things affect any of you, but they're illustrations coming up in my head of things that people deal with on a daily basis. You know, and I've talked about it with me. I mean, my life was drugs and alcohol, and I mean, the situations I put myself in my life, it was hard for me to take that step. So if I was to be honest with you, my transformation wasn't as miraculous as it sounds. Because the reality is I was raised in the church. I grew up in the church. And because of my choices and the things I did and the things of my life, I turned my back on God and I walked away from God. But as much as I don't talk about that dark period of my life, looking back now, I can see where Jesus walked with me that entire time. I can see so many times where my life was in a direction that Jesus was sending me down, and he was controlling my destiny. He healed me from things that I should have died. He kept me out of trouble when I should have been in more trouble. I mean, I attempted suicide 4 or 5 times and was very unsuccessful at that when a lot of people I should have died. This last time I was dead for 4 minutes. I shouldn't have made it out then. But see, God had a bigger picture for me. And the only way I could have lived in that misery, I could have stayed in that misery and stayed on this bottom rung and said, okay, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to go any higher. I believe in you, but I don't want to go any higher. I'm comfortable here. I want to hold on to this misery of what's happened to me in my life. And God is saying, but if you just come up here, you can see from my point of view why it happened and what's going on. But God, I don't want to see from your point of view because this hurts me. And we hold on to this stuff because we have a hard time putting our trust in God. I want you to know that trust doesn't come easy. Trust is just like this ladder. And trust with God is amazing because if you just take the next step, and if you just listen to his voice, he will see you through anything you go through. And see, the cool part about it is every step you take builds that trust in your life. Because every step you take, you can look back to the last step and you can see what he did to bring you to this step. You see, here's the thing I want you to see about a ladder. You notice something about a ladder? The bottom rung is really wide. I mean, it's a big step. It's really easy to step on, right? But the higher you go, these steps get narrower. The ladder gets narrower. Now you picture a ladder that's 100 feet tall. Can you imagine how big the bottom step is compared to how little the top step is? But see, we want everything to remain like that. But if it's easy, if there's no sacrifice, then what are you going to learn from it? What faith is there? What trust? It's easy to trust when it's easy, right? I mean, it's easy for me to trust that my car's going to start because I know I put gas in it last night. I know I turned the lights off. But is it easy for me to trust that if I get in somebody else's car, that it's going to work? I don't know. Especially if it looks like some of Wes's. Farm trucks. I'm kidding. Wes has nice vehicles. I should have said the counties. I like to pick on Wes. Some of you I know everybody in this room is dealing with stuff. And everybody's here because they want to have a better relationship with Jesus. They want to learn more. They want to go further. But like this story about Lazarus, you may be in a position right now where all you see is the dead guy. All you see is the dead person laying in the tomb. And you don't see that Jesus is here and he's crying because he loves that person enough and he's going to raise him from the dead. That he's going to do something miraculous in that person's life. But we can't see past the dead man that stinks. We can't see past our own sin. We can't see past the things that people have done to us. We can't see past the loss of family members. You see, everything happens for a reason. And that reason, the reason you go through trials and tribulations is because it makes you stronger. Right? You never learn how to deal with people who lie to you until people lie to you. You never know how to deal with people who love you until somebody loves you. Right? You can't figure out what love is until somebody shows you love. Just like you're never going to see what Jesus has for you, what God has for you in your life. If you're not willing to take that first step, take that second step, and know that when you get up here, you're going to be able to see that there was something bigger in the picture. And I want to say all this today because I want to give you guys the courage to be able to take that step and to keep taking those steps. You see, when you start to look back and you see these things, it's going to make it so much easier for you to make the next step. You just got to keep making steps. You got to keep your trust and you got to keep believing. So I don't know exactly what you're dealing with. I know some of your guys' pains. I've gotten close enough with a lot of you to know some of the hurts and things you go through. I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to take a step back from what it is that's hurting you. What it is if there's a bunch of things, pick one. Take a step back. Give it over to Christ. And say, you know what? I believe that you have a plan that is bigger than what it is I'm going through. I believe that there is something coming out of this that is bigger. Give it over to Christ this week. Take the next step. And I guarantee you, when you look back, you will see. You'll understand. Your faith will grow. Your trust will grow. And quit thinking it's going to happen overnight. We don't instantly trust people. I know some of us are easier at giving trust, but do we really trust? Right? Dear God, I come to you today and I praise your name and I thank you. I thank you, God, for giving us this example of your dear friend Lazarus dying and you coming and you raising him from the grave to show that not everything looks like it is. And not everything is what it is. And there's a purpose behind everything, and there's a bigger plan for everything. And no matter what it is we're dealing with, no matter if we're dealing with issues that have happened to our past, no matter if we're dealing with loss of loved ones, no matter if we're dealing with disease or heartache or whatever it is in our life, give us the faith to know that your glory is going to be done in this no matter what it is. And if you're going to heal our hearts, or if you're going to heal the people around us, or if you're going to heal the situation, then you're going to heal it. If you're not, you're not. But there's something bigger coming out of it. And in the end, we're going to be better than where we were before, and that you have nothing but love for us. And I pray that you be with us as we go throughout this week and as these things weigh heavily on our minds, Lord, and that you give everybody in this room the strength to be able to lay it at your feet and say, all right, God, here's what I've been dealing with. I've been having a hard time with this. I'm just laying at your feet and trusting that you're going to take care of this. I'm trusting that you have a bigger picture and a bigger plan. And I trust that your will is going to be done. And I pray, Lord, that every single person in this room makes the commitment to be able to say, Jesus, I want to be up there. I want to climb the ladder. I want to go every step as high as I can. And I pray that no matter how hard it gets, that you're with me and that you push me, and that even though there's pains along the way, that you keep lifting me up and you show me that I'm still going to heal and I'm still going to make it. And be with us as we go through this week. Keep us all safe. In your name I pray. Amen.